He didn't lose his job. He didn't lose his house. He lost everything. His business, his savings, his marriage, his health, all of it, gone within 18 months. And then something happened that most people never talk about, something that changed the entire direction of his life. Stay with me, because this story is going to hit different. If this is the kind of content that makes you think, that makes you feel something real, do yourself a favor right now. Hit that subscribe button and tap the bell so you never miss a story like this. We drop new videos every week, and every single one is designed to shake something loose in your brain. All right, let's get into it. His name was Marcus, not a celebrity, not a billionaire who came back from rock bottom just to sell you a course. Just a regular guy from Columbus, Ohio, who built a small construction company from scratch with his own 2 hands. For 12 years, he poured everything into that business. Missed birthdays, missed anniversaries, missed the little moments that quietly add up to a life. And for a while, it worked. He had 32 employees, he had contracts rolling in, he had a house with a 3-car garage and a wife who was still trying, barely, to hold on to what they used to be. And then 2008 happened, the financial crash. Contracts dried up overnight, banks stopped lending, clients disappeared. One by one, Marcus had to let his employees go. 32 people who trusted him, gone. He sold equipment to cover payroll. He borrowed against the house. He told his wife things would turn around. He told himself the same thing every morning in the mirror, standing there in a bathroom that was slowly becoming a stranger's house. But here's where the story gets interesting, because most people think the lowest point is when things fall apart. But Marcus would tell you the lowest point came 6 months after the business collapsed, when everything was already gone, when there was nothing left to lose, and he still couldn't stop. He couldn't stop grinding, couldn't stop planning, couldn't stop running from the silence. He was staying at his brother's place in a small, spare room that smelled like old carpet and regret. No business, no wife, no plan. And one night, around 2 in the morning, he couldn't sleep. He went to the kitchen to get a glass of water, and his brother had this old, beat-up copy of Marcus Aurelius on the counter, Meditations. You've probably heard of it. Maybe you've even read it. But for Marcus, the man, not the emperor, this book landed differently, because he was reading it at rock bottom. He wasn't reading it to be inspired. He was reading it because he had nowhere else to look. He read this line, and I want you to really hear it. Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." 8 words that a Roman emperor wrote to himself nearly 2,000 years ago, and they cracked something open in a broken man sitting in his brother's kitchen at 2 in the morning in Columbus, Ohio. Now here's what I want you to understand, because this is the part people skip over. This is the part they don't put in the motivational highlight reels. Marcus didn't read that line and suddenly feel better. He didn't stand up and start his comeback that night. He actually put the book down and cried. Not the quiet kind, the ugly kind, the kind that shakes your shoulders and makes your chest hurt. He cried for everything he'd lost. He cried for the version of himself he'd killed chasing the wrong thing. He cried for his marriage, for his employees, for his kids who were living with their mother now and calling another man dad within the year. But something shifted, quietly, the way a river slowly cuts through rock, not in a single dramatic moment, but inch by inch in the dark, where nobody can see it happening. Marcus started doing something strange. Every morning, before he looked at his phone, before he talked to anyone, before he made coffee, he sat in silence for 10 minutes. Just sat there. No meditation app, no guided breathing, just silence and whatever thoughts came up. And he wrote them down, every single one. The ugly ones, the scared ones, the bitter ones. He didn't judge them. He just wrote them down, like a scientist recording data, like Aurelius himself used to do in his journal, not for anyone else, but just to see himself clearly. This is a Stoic practice called morning reflection, and the Stoics weren't gentle people. They were generals, emperors, slaves who became philosophers. They believed that the only thing that truly belongs to you is your mind, your response, your attention. Everything else, your money, your reputation, your relationships, your health, those are what the Stoics called preferred indifference, things you can work toward and hope for, but things you should never confuse with your worth, never confuse with yourself. Marcus had made that mistake his whole adult life. His worth was his business. His identity was his revenue. When the business died, Marcus felt like he died with it. And in a way, a version of him did. But here's the twist. The version that died needed to die. 3 months into the silence practice, Marcus started noticing something. He wasn't chasing anymore. He wasn't running his brain at 100 miles an hour trying to solve a problem that didn't exist yet. He was just present. And in that presence, he started seeing things he'd never seen before. He saw that he actually loved building things, not managing people, not chasing contracts, the actual physical act of building, getting his hands dirty, creating something from nothing. And somewhere along the way, in the chase for growth, he'd completely lost that. He traded the thing he loved for the machine that was supposed to love him back. So he started small, ridiculously small. He took a job as a handyman for a property management company, making maybe a fifth of what he used to make, driving a used truck with 200,000 miles on it, and every single day he practiced what Aurelius called his discipline. Show up fully to what is in front of you. Do the work with care. Do not compare your present position to another man's peak. Do not let your ego write a story that your circumstances cannot support. It took 3 years, 3 long, quiet, unglamorous years before the tide turned. But here is what changed. It wasn't just his bank account. It was the way he carried himself. There's this thing that happens to people who go through real loss and come out the other side with their integrity intact. They stop being impressed by performance. They stop measuring themselves against other people. They stop needing approval the way most of us desperately need air. Marcus walked differently, talked differently. He listened more, laughed more. He wasn't trying to win anything. And ironically, that quality started attracting exactly the kind of people and opportunities he could never force when he was grinding with his jaw clenched. A client referred him to another client. He picked up a small renovation project, then another. Then someone asked if he could take on a crew. He said yes, carefully this time. He kept overhead low. He stayed close to the work. And by year 5, he had a thriving boutique renovation company with a waiting list. But the money isn't the story. The money is just evidence that the story worked. The real story is what Marcus told me when I asked him what he wished he'd known at the beginning. He didn't say he wished he'd been smarter about finances. He didn't say he wished he'd diversified or saved more or worked harder. He said, "I wish I had known that losing everything was the most honest thing that ever happened to me. Because when you have nothing left to protect, you finally find out what you actually are." Let that land. When you have nothing left to protect, you finally find out what you actually are. The Stoics had a practice called negative visualization. You sit with the worst-case scenario, not to torture yourself, but to strip away the fear of it. Because most of us are walking around haunted by a version of loss that we've never actually experienced. We're running from a monster we invented. And the running is what drains us. The running is what costs us the most. Marcus ran for 12 years, and when the thing he was running from finally caught him, he discovered it wasn't a monster. It was a mirror. It was the clearest picture he'd ever seen of who he actually was and who he actually wanted to be. Here's what I want to leave you with. The Stoic method isn't about being cold. It's not about not caring. It's not about pretending things don't hurt. It's about understanding, really deeply understanding, that the obstacles in front of you are not in opposition to your path. They are your path, every single one of them. And the man or woman who learns to walk through loss with their eyes open and their character intact, that person is unstoppable. Not because nothing can hurt them, but because nothing can define them. Marcus lost everything, and in losing everything, he found the only thing that was ever really his. Drop a comment right now and tell me, what is the one thing in your life that if you lost it, you think you'd lose yourself? Be honest. I want to read every single one, because the answer to that question might be the most important thing you ever examine about yourself. If this story hit home, please share this video with someone who is going through it right now, someone who is in that dark room at 2 in the morning looking for a reason to keep going. Be that reason for them. Hit send. It costs you nothing, and it could mean everything. And if you're new here, welcome to the Wisdom Hub. Hit subscribe, hit the bell. We'll see you in the next one. Don't just exist, Build something worth losing.